Hey everybody, it's Josephine and Bodo. I got a story for you. Remember those wooden spoons? Yeah. So, years ago, there's just those couple of things that you felt like you just had to do, and you knew, you'd get the spoon, or the shoe, or whatever it was, and you're like, I'm gonna just deal with it because I really gotta get this done, or I really want this, or whatever the case may be. Because you know what? At the end of the day, it's not like they were like, oh, you gotta stay home for a month. You just got cracked a couple of times, and then you'd get out of it, and you'd be like, all right, I'm here, I'm okay, I'm fine. So one day, back in the day, when you were only able to use the internet when someone was not on the phone, and my mother was always on the phone. I mean, Lena, Mina, Fina, and Sina, they would call first thing in the morning. Every morning, my father would walk out of the door, close the door, and the phone would ring. It was like magic. Of course, they'd stay on the phone all day. They would talk about what they made for breakfast, what was going on, and all these weird things that didn't really matter, did they? I don't know. So, I'm on the computer. The internet cuts off. And I'm upset because at that point, you lose your spot. You know when they're to be found. And my mother's going to get on the phone. And it's going to be a 3-hour conversation. And then my sister's going to be like, well, now it's my turn. And it's just going to be a mess. So now I pick up the phone, pretending I'm doing my mother a favor. Like, yeah, Ma, I got the phone for you. Don't worry, But you keep washing your dishes. So I'm like, hello? Sì, Gioia, come stai? Tomaggi dogo, Now, I knew it was going to be one of my mother's friends, but I had to think quick. So at that point, I go, no. And I knew I couldn't talk too much because then at that point, my mother would know it's somebody she knows. So my mother's like, Joe, who is it? And I'm like, uh-huh. And my mother's looking at me, and her friend's going, okay, Tomaji. Now she wants to know what my mother is doing, where she is, and all this. Because, this is what the Nozellas did back in the day. They just call and ask all these weird questions to each other. And that's what made their day go by. And I'm not that person, and I'm still not that person. So at this point, she's like, Tomaji, se ne ha pigliare un poco di frutta ne 10th Avenue. So I'm like, yeah. And now my mom, she's still staring at me. And I'm like, shit, how am I going to get out of this when I get off the phone? Because this is just like, And I hope she doesn't hear through the line. So now my mother's tapping her foot. And she's getting all mad. And I'm like, at this point, I realized I could switch it on her and explain to her that this was a solicitor calling. Technically, to me, it was a solicitor because this lady wants to know everybody's business. You know what I'm trying to say? She wants something out of the situation. So I'm like, okay, okay, all right, I gotta go. Okay, all right, bye-bye. And now, when you try to get an Italian lady off the phone, it's very difficult. Because then after that, they want to start asking you who you are, what kid you are, and then start asking you how school is, and if you did your homework, and it's like all these things that really don't pertain to anything, because the next time you see them, they're still going to think that you're your sister, and it's just not even like, don't even bother having the conversation, So I'm like, okay, I gotta go, bye. Now my mother sees that I'm nervous, and she gets all confused, and she's like, first, I was going to pretend it was the Bell Atlantic guy. But then at that point, I really couldn't do that. So I was like, this guy, he wanted to buy the house. And I told him no. And then he said he was going to call back, Ma, right? And my mother's like, disgraziato que. So I thought I was clear. And I thought it was good. And I was done. But I wasn't done. Because you know what happened? My mother's friend wound up calling at 3 o'clock and asking what she bought at the fruit store. And then my mother was like, I wasn't at the fruit store. And then I got cracked, and you know how the story goes. I hope you all have a good day. Comment below and let me know one of your wooden spoon stories.